Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Matthew, first of all, can I just talk to you briefly about this meeting you had with the New South Wales farmers and various landholders, I suppose, in the region? Why was council involved or invited into this meeting?
Well, the New South Wales farmers have got a local branch over in Dunedoo, and they were interested to hear what the three councils in the Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone had to say about some of the renewable energy. So there was myself from Dubbo Regional Council, we had Des Kennedy, the Mayor of Mid-Western Regional Council, and Ambrose Doolan from Warrumbungle, the Mayor of Warrumbungle Shire Council. So all three councils were represented, had a number of farmers from the local branch of the New South Wales Farmers, and Dunedoo seemed like a convenient location for all three of us to get to. In other words, some Mudgee from Coonabarabran and from Dubbo. So it was really a discussion about renewable energy. The farmers in the region and New South Wales farmers in general have got some concerns about renewable energy, so they were keen to hear from the three councils in this particular renewable energy zone just to find out a bit more information, a bit more background and put their concerns forward and their views forward about the renewable energy zone.
So just, in regards to the whole REZ scenario, is council fairly powerless here?
Pretty much, yeah. And that was what we explained to the farmers there. We said that if your intention is to stop it, because there were some farmers in the room who were talking, when we started just explaining some of the things, they were talking to us as if to say, hold on a sec, it sounds like here that you think it's going ahead. We want to have it stopped. And we did explain that if you want to have it stopped, then you had the wrong three people in the room, because council is not the consent authority for these renewable energy projects. So it would be like saying to the mayor of your city, can you please get the Reserve Bank to change the interest rates or change the superannuation, the tax rate over the $3 million threshold they're talking about from the federal government. You need to make sure you're talking to the people who make decisions at the appropriate level. The whole renewable energy zone, all the concepts around this renewable energy zone and the renewable energy zones across the state, it's all driven by the state government. So if your intention is to stop it, then get the state government in the room. No point having the councils in the room. We can make comments about the renewable energy zones. We can put forward some views, but the reality is it's all done through an independent planning commission who will take those comments on board the same as they would from an individual landholder or from New South Wales farmers. We're no more powerful in that process than that part of that in terms of making comments. The one thing that I did say at the meeting was that I accept the fact that it's going to happen. If you look at Liddell Power Station closing down, you look at the reduction in coal mining and power stations closing down in general, and the number of renewable energy projects that we're seeing coming through across the nation, including in our renewable energy zone, the reality is it's going to happen. So my focus from a Dubbo Regional Council perspective is how can we get the best outcomes for our community out of these projects. Standing there and trying to say, stop these projects going ahead is like trying to stand on the edge of the ocean and tell the tide to stop coming in. You're not going to do it and the tide's going to knock you over. You're better off trying to get on the surfboard and ride the wave in. In this case, you're better off talking to the government, talking to these proponents and maximising the return for the residents in this area out of the renewable energy zone.
Yes, I think you're right. And it sounds like there are a lot of really good economic benefits for farmers that can keep them going. And just, obviously farming is a really unpredictable environment depending on droughts and floods, etc. But if you have that steady income coming through because you've got a few wind turbines on your property, then that can be really helpful.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And there's a whole range of variables there. Solar panels on flat prime agricultural land means that you can't still grow that crop of wheat, for example, on that paddock. So there are some negative effects, and solar probably has more negative outcomes rather than wind turbines. But some people don't like the look of wind turbines. There are I can see arguments on both sides in terms of the farmers in a variety of circumstances, it not being the best outcome for that individual farmer. But when you take a step back and look at the big picture, we've got to create electricity in other ways besides burning coal. And this is the current method that seems to be the best method. We'll keep producing electricity in different methods over the next decades to come. But for the moment, we've got to produce electricity, and this seems like the best method. And in circumstances like this, when there's change, there are sometimes winners and losers, and unfortunately, that's what's happening in this scenario. But again, stopping it, council's the wrong organisation to talk to.
Now, just moving on, an article that today in the Sydney Morning Herald, there's a couple of points made by this economist. He thinks in terms of addressing the crisis, councils should not have the right to block development. They can determine the quality of housing and the type of housing in certain areas, but not the quantity. And he thinks that construction targets should be set for each local council. What is your opinion?
I think the whole idea of local government is that on the ground, local government knows what's needed in a community and knows what's happening in a local community. Having the process where local government couldn't make planning decisions seems somewhat counterintuitive to local organisations, local councils making those local decisions. If you took all those planning decisions and put them through a state-based authority, I think you would lose that local element. Now, having said that, it's interesting because I don't see council knocking back developments. I don't see council saying no to a whole range of developments. When developers put applications in that are complying with the laws of the day, and I'm talking about mostly state-imposed laws, then council staff assess those developments based against those laws, and councillors, when they're involved, and they're not always involved in these decisions, but councillors typically respect those local laws as well. So it's not an issue that I've seen, certainly in my time on council, where councils are knocking back all these developments and developers are getting frustrated about all these developments being knocked back. They might be frustrated with the laws they've got to adhere to, but again, these are mostly state-based laws that councils are adhering to. If it was a case where councils were knocking back developments left, right and centre, then developers have the ability to go to the Land and Environment Court and actually say to the court, we think this decision was wrong, it was legally wrong, it was unfair, whatever it might be, but there is a process for them to appeal that. But I don't remember the last time a developer took council to the Land and Environment Court, and when it does happen, it's very rare for it to happen. When it does happen, more often than not, the court basically says, no, council got it right, you've got to go and change your development to adhere to the laws of the land.
He also suggested, this is something that I think has been more widely accepted actually, that councils be paid by the government to increase their urban density, which is a scheme introduced by Biden actually and is already working in the US. What do you think about that?
I don't think this particular person understands the problems that we have in regional areas. I haven't read the article, but some of the issues he's talking about may be relevant in different areas of the state. But in places like Dubbo, we don't have a problem necessarily with our urban density. We do have flexibility in our planning to allow different levels of density because we've got different people that live in our community. Some people love the idea of living in an apartment. It's nice and easy. You walk out the door, close the door behind you, and you can go off and forget about your place. Other people like to have some medium density or some lower density housing. Some people like to have a big yard around them where they mow the lawn each weekend and play in their garden. So there's a whole range of different things that people want. Councils have got to be able to deliver on what residents want. Our biggest problem is not so much the density of what we're doing. We need more tradies to be able to construct what people need. That seems to be more of a problem than anything else. We just simply don't have enough housing. Forget about the level of density of the housing. We don't have enough housing. So paying councils to have different levels of density in their areas, well, again, I think we've already got that now, but you can't make houses appear overnight. And the concept that we've talked before, Sam, about 3D printed housing, that concept is still being developed because we need to work out ways to get housing on the ground quicker. Changing the laws, changing the density, those things aren't going to necessarily deliver housing on the ground quicker. What we need is the ability to have more tradies, maybe more immigration, maybe TAFE. When TAFE was dismantled somewhat about 9 years ago, then everyone saw that might create a problem down the track, and I think we're seeing the results of that now. So the problems, I don't think, are at the feet of councils. The problems are across a whole range of parts of society.
Matthew, I think that covers it.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.